Hi there, welcome to Fantasy Hub. I'm Mia, your storyteller. Today's story is filled with heartache, discovery, and a twist you won't see coming. So let's begin.
Mackenzie didn't just insert herself into my life, she detonated in it. 3 days after our beach encounter, she showed up at my studio with coffee, croissants, and a proposition that should have sent me running. I want to commission a collection, she announced, bare feet already propped on my drafting table like she'd been there forever. Something that captures us. Us, I laughed, but it came out strangled. Sweetheart, there is no us. You spilled a drink on my work and I let you buy me dinner. That's not a relationship, that's charity. She poured wine from a bottle that appeared from nowhere, steady hands that belonged to someone twice her age. Tell me about your ex-husband, she said, completely ignoring my protests. The one who clearly never appreciated this face. My pencil snapped between my fingers, because of course she'd done her research. Of course she knew about Richard, about the very public dissolution of my marriage, about how he'd traded me in for his 20-something yoga instructor, like I was a discontinued car model. We're here to discuss jewelry, I said, reaching for my emergency antacids, not my failed marriage. Mackenzie's finger traced the stress lines around my eyes with shocking gentleness. When's the last time someone touched you here? She whispered. When's the last time someone looked at these lines and thought they were beautiful instead of something to hide? That's when she kissed me. Soft at first, questioning, then harder when I didn't pull away. My sketch pad hit the floor, scattering 20 years of careful professionalism. And for the first time since Richard left, I forgot to reach for my Tums. What followed was 6 weeks of the most elaborate dance I'd ever performed. Mackenzie would arrive each morning with some excuse discussing the collection, approving sketches, selecting stones, but we both knew what was really happening. She'd curl up in my reading chair while I worked, painting her nails the exact shade of the aquamarines I was setting, telling me stories about art school and trust fund rebellion that made me feel ancient and electrified simultaneously. I tried to maintain boundaries, really I did. But Mackenzie had a way of demolishing walls I didn't even know I'd built. You know what your problem is? She said one afternoon, wine making her bold. You think age gaps matter when you're creating something? Beautiful together. Age gaps matter when one person is old enough to be the other's mother. I shot back, but my hands were already reaching for her. Good thing I have mommy issues, she grinned and kissed me until I forgot why I was supposed to care about anything. Except the way she tasted like possibility. The jewelry we created during those weeks was unlike anything I'd ever designed. Wild, organic pieces that seemed to grow from stone rather than being carved. Mackenzie-inspired shapes I'd never considered flowing. Lines that mimicked the curve of her spine, settings that held gems the way her hands held my face. You're different when you design for me, she observed one evening, watching me work, less controlled, more alive. She wasn't wrong. For the first time in years, I was creating from desire instead of obligation, but I kept telling myself it was just artistic inspiration, just two people collaborating on something beautiful, just anything except what it actually was. Then came March 15th. Date now permanently etched in my memory alongside other life-altering moments. We were in the basement studio of the Meridian Gallery, preparing for my first major exhibition in 3 years. Mackenzie had insisted on helping with the setup, which mostly involved her providing commentary while I obsessed over lighting angles. You're going to give yourself an ulcer, she said, watching me adjust the same display case for the 10th time. The pieces are gorgeous. People are going to lose their minds. People are going to compare everything to my earlier work, I muttered. They're going to say I've lost my edge, that the divorce ruined my... That's when the building started. Moving. At first, I thought it was just a truck passing by. Los Angeles construction never stops. But then books started falling, lights swayed, and Mackenzie grabbed my arm with genuine fear in her eyes. Earthquake, she breathed, just as the real shaking began. The next few seconds were chaos. Display cases toppled, my precious jewelry scattered across the floor, and Mackenzie tackled me under the reinforced metal table just as a beam crashed where I'd been standing. We huddled there in the dust and darkness, her body pressed against mine, both of us shaking from more than just the seismic activity. "Is it over?" she whispered after the motion stopped. I tried my phone, no signal. The stairwell was blocked by debris. The emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie red glow, and when I tested the door, it wouldn't budge. "We're trapped," I said, trying to keep panic out of my voice. Mackenzie looked around our concrete prison, then back at me. "Well," she said with forced brightness, "I can think of worse places to be stuck. Being trapped changes people. Strip away civilization, comfort, and the illusion of control, and you discover who someone really is underneath." Mackenzie, I learned, was braver than I'd given her credit for. She found a first aid kit and cleaned a cut on my forehead with steady hands. She rationed the water bottles we found in the gallery's mini fridge. She kept me talking when claustrophobia threatened to overwhelm me, and she didn't panic when aftershocks sent more debris tumbling. But it was during hour 3, when we'd run out of small talk and practical concerns, that the real confession began. "I need to tell you something," she said, her usual confidence replaced by something smaller, more vulnerable. "I'm scared. Of the earthquake, we're going to be fine. They'll find us, not of this." She gestured at our concrete tomb. "Of you, of how I feel about you. Of the fact that you think I'm just some kid playing dress up with older women." Her fingers found mine in the dim light, and I didn't pull away. "Mackenzie, let me finish." Her voice was steady now, adult in a way that made my chest tight. "I know you think this is some daddy issues thing or rebellion or whatever, but I've dated plenty of people my own age, Georgia. Boys who think maturity means craft beer and vintage band t-shirts. Girls who confuse cynicism with intelligence. None of them ever looked at me the way you do. How do I look at you? Like I'm art," she whispered. "Like I'm something worth creating for." That's when I kissed her. Not the careful, questioning kisses we'd shared before, but something desperate and honest. Her hands tangled in my hair, and mine mapped the curve of her waist, and for the first time in months, I stopped overthinking and just felt. When we broke apart, her cheek was pressed against mine, her breath warm on my ear. "I love you," she said simply. "I know you think I'm too young to know what that means, but I love the way you frown when you're concentrating. I love that you keep antacids in every purse. I love that you create beauty even when you're broken inside." My laugh was rough with unshed tears. "Kid, you've had your hand on my ass since minute 1. If you think I consider this some innocent mentorship..." She silenced me with another kiss, and this time I didn't hold back. This time I let myself touch her the way I'd been wanting to for weeks, let myself believe that maybe age was just a number and connection was what mattered. We made love there in the wreckage of my gallery, surrounded by scattered jewelry and fallen dreams, and it was the most beautiful disaster of my life. When the rescue workers finally broke through 6 hours later, they found us tangled together, clothes askew, grinning like teenagers. "Ma'am, are you injured?" the paramedic asked, trying not to stare at Mackenzie's state of undress. "Never better," I said, and meant it. The earthquake made headlines, but our relationship made bigger ones. Gossip sites had a field day with photos of us being helped from the rubble, disheveled and obviously intimate. "Kruger designer finds love in disaster," screamed one particularly tasteless headline. I should have been mortified. My career was already on shaky ground, and being known as the older woman who seduced her young client wasn't exactly a reputation boost. But Mackenzie faced the media circus with the same fearless confidence she brought to everything else. Are you embarrassed? I asked her one morning, looking at a particularly unflattering photo of us leaving the hospital. Of you? Never. She kissed my temple. Of that lipstick choice? Absolutely. She moved him 3 weeks later, not because of the earthquake trauma, but because, as she put it, your coffee maker is better and your bed faces east. Her presence transformed my sterile, minimalist space into something warmer, more alive. Art, books mixed with jewelry magazines. Her vintage band t-shirts draped over my designer chairs, her laugh echoing through rooms that had been silent for too long. But the real transformation was in my work. The collection I'd been preparing for the gallery, the one scattered during the quake, became something entirely different when I rebuilt it. Instead of the safe commercial pieces I'd planned, I created something raw and honest. Jewelry that told our story, pieces inspired by seismic activity, by the beauty found in destruction and reconstruction. The seismic collection, Mackenzie dubbed it, art born from upheaval. Living with Mackenzie meant adjusting to someone whose energy burned brighter and faster than mine. She wanted to go out dancing on Tuesday nights, to take weekend trips to places I'd never heard of, to say yes to invitations I would have automatically declined. You realize I'm in my 40s? I told her after she suggested we go skydiving for her birthday. You realize that's not actually old, right? She shot back. My grandmother is 78 and she just started a food truck. Ages. A mindset, Georgia. So I learned to say yes. Yes to the salsa lessons that left us laughing and stepping on each other's feet. Yes to the weekend in Vegas that was supposed to be for a jewelry trade show, but turned into something much more spontaneous. Yes to being photographed at art gallery. Openings where I was definitely the oldest person there, but no longer cared. Mackenzie, in turn, learned to appreciate quieter pleasures. She discovered she loved watching me work, understanding the meditative quality of setting stones and polishing metal. She started reading the art history books I recommended, not to impress me, but because she genuinely wanted to understand the traditions I was building upon. I get it now, she said one evening, curled up in my reading chair while I sketched. Why you approach everything like it's permanent. When you've lived long enough to see beautiful things disappear, you want to build something that lasts. And what do you want to build? I asked. Her smile was soft in the lamplight. Something beautiful with you. By the time the seismic collection was ready for exhibition, we'd been together 8 months. 8 months of navigating curious stares, concerned family members, and our own insecurities about the gap between our life experiences. But we'd also had 8 months of the kind of connection I'd never experienced with anyone, regardless of age. The Louvre's interest in hosting the exhibition was unexpected. My work had gained attention after the earthquake story went viral, but international recognition was beyond anything I dared hope for. Mackenzie was more excited than I was. If that was possible, Paris. She squealed when I got the call. We're going to Paris. I'm going to eat so much cheese I'll need to be rolled home. We? I raised an eyebrow. This is a professional obligation, not a vacation. Her face fell slightly. I just thought ... I mean, I was part of the inspiration for these pieces. I thought maybe ... I kissed her quiet. Of course you're coming. I just wanted to see you pout. It's adorable. The exhibition opening was surreal. Critics who had written me off after my divorce were suddenly praising my bold new direction and mature artistic vision. The pieces themselves looked stunning under the museum lighting, wild, organic shapes that seemed to capture movement within metal and stone. But the centerpiece was Mackenzie's favorite, a diamond cuff bracelet designed to look like seismic waves, each stone catching light like trapped starfire. I'd worked on it for months, obsessing over every detail because I knew it would be the piece that defined the collection. It's perfect, Mackenzie breathed, studying it behind the glass. It looks like like our earthquake. Like something beautiful born from destruction. Actually, I said, dropping to one knee right there in the middle of the Louvre, it looks like a proposal. The tourists started taking pictures before Mackenzie even processed what was happening. When she did, her "fuck yes" echoed through the hallowed halls loudly enough to make security nervous. She tackled me there on the marble floor, kissing me while flashbulbs popped and art patrons applauded. We were escorted out by very polite but firm French security, but not before every major fashion blog had photos of the moment. The headlines this time were kinder: "Love wins at the Louvre," and "Designer finds her masterpiece." We got married 6 months later in a ceremony that was equal parts elegant and chaotic, much like our relationship. Mackenzie insisted on writing her own vows, which she delivered in both English and Spanish, making half the guests cry and the other half laugh. My vows were shorter, but no less heartfelt. A promise to keep creating beauty together, whatever earthquakes life might send our way. Richard predictably didn't attend, but my parents surprised me by not only showing up, but genuinely embracing Mackenzie. "She makes you happy," my mother said simply. That's all that matters. Mackenzie's family was more complicated. Her parents were wealthy conservatives who had definite opinions about their daughter marrying someone nearly 20 years older. But Mackenzie handled them with the same fearless grace she brought to everything else. "I know you think I'm making a mistake," she told them during the rehearsal dinner. "You think I'm too young, that this won't last, that I should be with someone my own age. But Georgia sees me in ways no one else ever has. She challenges me to be better while accepting exactly who I am right now. If that's not love, I don't know what is." Her father, a stern man who made his fortune in tech, studied me across the table. "What are your intentions with my daughter?" He asked a question that might have been appropriate if Mackenzie were 17 instead of 26. "To love her completely," I answered. "To support her dreams, even when they scare me. To create a life together that's worthy of how extraordinary she is." He nodded slowly. "That single quote's acceptable." Marriage changed us in ways I didn't expect. Not the big, dramatic changes that people warn you about, but subtle shifts that made our connection even deeper. Mackenzie started a jewelry design program, wanting to understand my craft from the inside. I started saying yes to more adventures, letting her youth and enthusiasm pull me out of my comfortable routines. We bought a house in the hills, something neither too young nor too traditional, with a studio space where we could work side by side. Mackenzie set up her easel near my jewelry bench, and we spent long afternoons creating in comfortable silence, occasionally reaching across the space between us to touch hands or share a thought. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked one evening, looking up from a painting she was working on. "Being with someone your own age? Having I don't know, shared cultural references?" I considered the question seriously. Sometimes I feel ancient when you reference movies from your childhood that I saw as an adult. Sometimes I worry about what happens when I start really showing my age, but miss it. No, I've never connected with anyone the way I connect with you. Age is just one variable in the equation, and it's not the most important one. What is the most important one? How we make each other feel, how we challenge each other, how we create something together that's more beautiful than what either of us could build alone. She smiled and went back to her painting, an abstract piece inspired by the light in our studio. "That's very romantic for someone who claims not to be romantic. You bring out unexpected sides of me, I admitted. Always have. Our 5th wedding anniversary finds us back in Paris, this time for the opening of Mackenzie's first solo exhibition. Her paintings have gained recognition in their own right, bold, colorful pieces that capture the energy and movement I fell in love with. The art world no longer sees her as just the jewelry designer's young wife, but as an artist worth watching. Nervous? I ask her as we dress for the opening. Terrified, she admits, struggling with her earrings, a pair I made. For her 3rd anniversary, inspired by the curve of her smile. What if nobody comes? What if they hate everything? What if I kiss her quiet, the same way I did all those years ago in my studio? Then we'll go get gloriously drunk and make fun of everyone who was too stupid to recognize your talent. She laughs, tension melting from her shoulders. This is why I married you. Well, this and your exceptional ability to clasp difficult necklaces. The opening is a success. Mackenzie's work sells well, critics are kind, and I watch her glow with pride as strangers discuss her use of color and form. At 48, I'm no longer the youngest person at art events, but I'm no longer the oldest either. Age has become irrelevant in a way I never expected. Later, back in our hotel room, Mackenzie curls against me with champagne-soft limbs and happy exhaustion. Thank you, she murmurs against my neck. For what? For seeing me before I saw myself? For believing I could be an artist when I was just a rich girl with trust fund guilt and too much time on her hands? You were always an artist, I tell her. I just happened to be around when you figured it out. What I never expected from loving someone younger was how it would change my relationship with my own aging. Instead of seeing each new line on my face as a loss, Mackenzie taught me to see them as evidence of a life well lived. She traces them with reverent fingers, calling them wisdom maps and laugh archives. You know what I love about this one? She says, touching the crease between my eyebrows. This is your concentration line. Every time you've focused on creating something beautiful, you've deepened this line. It's like ... physical evidence of all the art you've made. At 50, I am more confident in my skin than I was at 30. Not because age doesn't matter, but because I've learned that connection transcends the physical in ways I never understood when I was younger myself. Mackenzie, now 31, has grown into herself in ways that make our relationship feel more balanced than it did in the beginning. She's no longer the impulsive girl who spilled drinks on my sketches, but she hasn't lost the fearless energy that first attracted me. If anything, she's learned to channel it more effectively. Do you think we're an unusual couple? She asks sometimes when we're reading together on Sunday mornings, her feet in my lap while I work on new designs. Probably, I admit, but unusual isn't the same as wrong. Life has a way of testing the foundations you think you've built. Our test came in the form of my mother's stroke, sudden, severe, requiring immediate and ongoing care. At 78, she needed more help than my father could provide, and as an only child, the responsibility fell to me. We should move her in with us, I said, still reeling from the doctor's prognosis. Convert the studio space, hire nurses. Whoa, Mackenzie interrupted gently. Let's talk about this. That's a huge decision that affects both of us. This was our first major life crisis as a married couple, and I watched carefully for signs that Mackenzie might crack under the pressure. She was 31, after all an age when most people were focused on building careers and maybe starting families, not caring for aging in-laws, but Mackenzie surprised me again. She researched care facilities with the same thoroughness she brought to her art. She visited my mother daily in the hospital, bringing books and gossip and the kind of cheerful energy that older people respond to. She held my hand through difficult conversations with doctors and never once suggested that this wasn't her problem to solve. She's family, Mackenzie said simply when I tried to give her an out. And even if she wasn't, I love you. That means we figure this out together. We ended up finding a beautiful assisted living facility 10 minutes from our house, close enough for daily visits, but far enough to maintain our own space and relationship. Mackenzie insisted on helping my mother decorate her new apartment, turning it into something warm and personal rather than institutional. You're lucky, my mother told me one afternoon while Mackenzie hung family photos with characteristic precision. I was wrong about her being too young for you. Age is just numbers. Character is what matters. Now, 7 years into our marriage, and nearing our 50th birthdays, mine, and 35th, hers, I can see the shape of what we've built together. It's not the relationship I expected to have, but it's more authentic than anything I experienced with my age-appropriate ex-husband. We've weathered media attention, family skepticism, health scares, and the ordinary challenges that test any marriage. We've created art together, traveled the world, built a home that reflects both our personalities. Mackenzie has become not just my wife, but my closest friend, my creative partner, my favorite person to share both adventures and quiet Sunday mornings with. Do you ever regret it? I ask her sometimes, usually late at night when wine and candlelight make us philosophical, choosing someone so much older, missing out on growing up together. Never, she always answers without hesitation. Growing up is overrated. Growing together is what matters. Here's what I learned from falling in love with someone 15 years younger. Age gaps aren't inherently good or bad. They're just another variable in the complex equation of human connection. What matters is mutual respect, shared values, and the ineffable chemistry that makes two people want to build a life together. Mackenzie and I work not because we're the same age, but because we complement each other in ways that matter. She challenges me to take risks. I provide stability when her enthusiasm needs grounding. She brings energy and optimism to my tendency towards cynicism. I offer experience and perspective when she needs guidance. We've both changed and grown during our years together, but we've done it in parallel rather than in opposition. The woman who spilled a margarita on my sketches is still fearless and impulsive, but she's also developed patience and artistic discipline. The uptight jewelry designer she seduced has learned to embrace spontaneity without losing her appreciation for craftsmanship and tradition. This morning, Mackenzie surprised me with coffee in bed and the news that a major gallery in New York wants to host a joint exhibition of our worker paintings alongside my jewelry. Two artistic visions in conversation with each other. Think we can handle being professional colleagues again? She asked, grinning over her coffee cup. As long as you promise not to put your feet on my drafting table, I replied. No promises, she said, and kissed me with lips that still taste like possibility. So that's my story. The tale of how a beach bar encounter turned into the love of my life. How an earthquake revealed what really mattered, and how age became irrelevant in the face of genuine connection. It's not the story I expected to tell about my 40s and 50s, but it's the one I'm grateful to live. Some tremors, it turns out, are worth surrendering to. Some foundations are strong enough to withstand any shakeup. And sometimes the most beautiful art comes from the collision of unexpected elements, different ages, different perspectives, different ways of seeing the world. Mackenzie is painting in the studio now, humming off key while she works on a piece. Inspired by the light filtering through our bedroom curtains, I'm supposed to be working on sketches for the New York show, but instead I'm watching her create, marveling at how someone so young taught me so much about living fully. You're staring, she says without looking up from her canvas. You're beautiful, I reply, because after all these years, that's still the most honest response I can give. She laughs, the same laugh that first caught my attention at Miguel's beach bar all those years ago, and goes back to her painting. And I go back to my sketches, designing jewelry, inspired by the woman who taught me that the best art comes from the willingness to embrace the unexpected. The earthquake that trapped us together was just the beginning. The real seismic shift was learning to build a love strong enough to withstand whatever tremors life might send our way.